That's fine. If I get cold, I'm gonna be real sad. I'm already cold. Ready to start?
I am. Are you? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Let's get this right on the show.
Taylor, ready to go? Good evening. Welcome to the Bath Charter Township Board of Trustees meeting for Monday, April 21st. Happy Easter to those who celebrate. We'll start with a call to order.
Mr. Fewens-Bliss?
Here.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Here.
Ms. Hagerman? Here. Ms. Kellerman?
Here.
Mr. Kotke?
Here.
Ms. Wilson? Here. And absent is Clerk Butler Challenger.
Thank you. Next up is our civic reflection. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance and follow with a moment of silence. So please stand if you're able to join us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now a moment of silence. Thank you. It is great to have everyone back together again. I have not heard from anybody that we need any sort of changes in the agenda. Anybody feeling the need to shift what we have presented to us?
Motion to approve the agenda as written.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor of approval of the agenda as it's been presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Any disclosures of conflicts of interest that folks have? All right, looks like none. So we'll move on first to public statement number 1. This is limited to 3 minutes designated toward comments that are about the agenda that we have in front of us tonight. There will be a second opportunity at the end of the meeting for anyone to have an additional 3 minutes to talk about whatever under the sun that they would like to comment on. Are there any public comments tonight? All right. We'll keep on trucking then. We have items from county, state, federal, and/or other agencies, and I see several of those folks here. Let's start with the Honorable Representative Penelope Cerniglu, our state representative. She's got a tribute to provide to a couple of our officers, and then she's going to give us a legislative update from Lansing. Take it away, Rep.
Thank you, Supervisor Fewens-Bliss. So I have 2 tributes here today. If I could have Officer Bailey and Wright join me for these tributes as well as the chief. I will say a little bit something about the tributes and officers. So today, I'm honored to be able to present legislative tributes to Officer Bradley Bailey and Jonathan Wright for their tireless dedication to the Bath Township Police Department. Last month, Officer Bailey and Officer Wright were singled out for their efforts after rescuing a stranded deer from a window well. And I saw this online, which was, I was very impressed. Both officers have selflessly served our community and are certainly deserving of this special recognition. Officer Bradley Bailey has been with the Bath Township Police Department since 2020 and has quickly moved up in seniority. Officer Bailey serves as a Teams instructor for the department, regularly visiting 5th and 6th grade classes for various instructions to help children protect themselves from crime. Recently, Officer Bailey was selected by the Clinton County Special Operations Team to become one of their on-scene negotiators. Officer Bailey has been an invaluable member of the Bath Township Police Department, and I know he will continue to serve the people of our community. Officer Jonathan Wright is also being recognized for his commitment to Bath Township. Officer Wright joined the Bath Township Police Department in May of 2024 and has been a wonderful new addition to the department. Officer Wright was the first person Bath Police sponsored in the Mid-Michigan Police Academy, and he graduated last May with flying colors. Before attending the academy, Officer Wright was in the United States Army and is still an active member of the National Guard. I thank Officer Wright for his service and continued dedication to protecting and serving our community. And of course, they've done all these wonderful things under the instruction of our chief here. So thank you for that good work as well. And if we can hand these down. There are the tributes. And if we could take a little photo there. That'd be awesome. So congratulations. Congratulations.
You're right in the picture.
Thanks for being such a great chief.
Gretchen must not have been able to make it.
She's been away.
Thank you so much, we
Thank you
appreciate
all
it very
for
much.
being
They rescued me.
These are awesome. Thank you again.
Eat them.
Thank you, Representative. So will you give us an update of what's happening in Lansing, especially things that might touch on local municipal government?
Absolutely, that was so much more exciting.
It is, yes.
I could save a deer. I once had to call around and find someone to save a kitten. Yeah, next time I'll call back, because I know you guys are on it. Okay, so I'm just going to go over a few of the budget highlights from the governor's recommended budget. I think you may all know that the budget ends up getting negotiated between the governor, the House, and the Senate, so we don't know what the final budget will look like. But the governor's budget recommendation for fiscal year 2026 totals $83.5 billion, including a general fund total of $15.3 billion and a school aid budget totaling $21.2 billion. For K through 12 education, $516 million is recommended to increase the per pupil foundation allowance by $392 per pupil, a 4.1% increase. This will raise the foundation allowance to $10,000 per pupil. Total state funding for the foundation allowance is $10.4 billion. Districts will continue to receive a full foundation allowance payment in addition to required cost reimbursement payments for each special education student. The governor's budget includes $523.9 million in ongoing funding to ensure these foundation allowance payments are available to support these students, and more than $1.1 billion to reimburse districts for special education costs. The budget includes $200 million that, when combined with available federal funding, continues programs to ensure all students in a public school can receive breakfast and lunch at no cost. That's one of the things that's a priority for myself and a lot of my colleagues. We want to make sure that the free lunches and breakfasts can continue. The budget also continues support for the use of local produce in meals. In total, the budget includes almost $1.2 billion in state and federal authorization for school meals. For healthcare access, $96.4 million gross, $33.1 million from the general fund is recommended to implement an asset disregard for medically needy Medicaid beneficiaries, which will effectively increase the spend down income level to 100% of the federal poverty level, aligning income standards to ensure these vulnerable individuals continue to have access to the Medicaid benefits. This will help aged, blind, and disabled beneficiaries, low-income seniors, and others with severe disabilities who depend on Medicaid to receive access to care sooner without spending income down well below the typically qualifying income level. And then for rebuilding our infrastructure, the governor's proposed budget to invest in expanding on the nearly 20,000 lane miles of state-owned roads and 1,400 bridges that have been fixed, repaired, or replaced since Governor Whitmer took office. So those are some of the recommendations by the governor. We have a little bit of a change in the budget process this year for local requests. So that would apply to townships and yourselves. Our current speaker has required that we include, that our funding requests are public. So we have to sponsor a particular request. So you will see what requests, if you want to, that I made. You'll be able to know for sure that I requested, what you asked for or what I might have requested for other places in the district. And I actually I like that part of the process, because if I make a request for you, I'd like you to know that I made it. We may not get it. In fact, I don't know that there's going to be a lot allocated this year, but we can always ask. And there are going to be some additional requirements that townships and cities have to meet to make budget requests, and we have communicated that to through your supervisor. And at this time, the only request that we have received is through the library, so we will be making a request for the library and also through the county. So I think that, that might apply to the whole township. But if there's anything further, please get in touch right away before our deadline, which is later this week. But Supervisor Fewens-Bliss has our office's information for any of that. I will tell you, because I'm your state representative, what specific things I have introduced this year, which may or may not be of interest to you. But so I introduced House Bill 4048, which is part of a package to prevent the dissemination of deep fake explicit images. So you guys probably are familiar with artificial intelligence and its growing share of everything really in the world, and sadly there are people who are using it to do bad things like create explicit images of non-consenting individuals, primarily women and girls. And I last term introduced a package to ban that, and it did not make it all the way through. And I again introduced that package as a bipartisan package with Representative Bierlein from Frankenmuth, and I believe it's passed committee and hopefully will be up for a vote on the House floor very soon. I also introduced, House Bill 4130, which updates the definition of shelter for dogs in extreme weather, so extremely cold weather or extremely hot weather. This just allows animal control and law enforcement to better police any situations where the animals are left outside without adequate shelter, not to persecute the individuals, just to simply be able to say, hey, you need to take your dog in or find a better place. The law says you have to, keep your dog out of these type of conditions. And I don't think this has ever happened here, but sadly in other parts of the state there have been incidents where animals, dogs, rather froze to death because they didn't have dog houses or weren't taken inside. So again, bipartisan legislation. So I've introduced this with two of my Republican counterparts. Then House Bill 4317 and 4317 deals with employer violations of wages and fringe benefits. 4094 deals with the jury selection process. And very recently I introduced a bill, this might be somewhat interesting, this is another bipartisan package that deals with when you can take office as a local official. Our deputy clerk probably is familiar with how that works. But I don't know if your township does it or not, but there were some municipalities and townships where elected officials would take office right away after an election took place, which didn't allow enough time for the clerks to actually certify the election. So the Clerks Association wanted to negotiate that date to after December 31st. And the Township Association was part of that process, as well as the Michigan Municipal League and anyone else who was affected by that. So that would change the date that officials, after being elected, could take office, and they would have to take office no sooner than December 1st, just to allow for the clerks to have enough time to certify the elections. So those are some of the things so far. that I've introduced this, this term, which started in January. I'm very much open to ideas from all of you for things you would like to see passed in our legislature, or introduced, or supported, whatever that might be. Last term, I had 13 public acts, most of them dealing with voting, but some other laws in there as well. And I am, happy to talk outside of this meeting about anything you want to talk about dealing with the legislature, and also answer any questions, but just wanted to provide a brief update to all of you. So I hope that update was helpful, and if there's anything else you would like me to address at a future meeting or time, I would be happy to come back. And again, your supervisor has my contact information, so feel free to get that information from him if you'd like to talk more.
Questions from the board?
I just had one question on the election swear-in date. Does that apply to school boards as well, or just boards of trustees?
So since the school board elections are at different times, it wouldn't apply if it was like
Okay.
a May election. If the school board election was held in November, then it would apply.
Okay.
But, so it's anyone who's running in a November election. And the School Board Association, they're aware of and not opposed.
Does that also apply to situations where somebody's being elected to fill a partial term, or a seat that was vacated partway through?
So it would,
I know I'm asking some
yeah, no,
specific
those are-
questions, but.
Those are some good questions. So it applies to if the election is held, on that November date.
Right.
It would apply. It wouldn't really matter what.
The reasoning is for that election.
Yeah,
Okay.
But normally, I think special elections are kind of held at, kind of different times of the year. So I would have to double check and look and see, what it says about that time frame. But I would have to guess that it just, it basically would be as many days, in between that as would normally be between the November and December 1st date.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
I did get the call from your staff today about the needs for letters of support, and understanding that the library is the only local entity that has asked you. Do you need a letter from this board to support the library, or is the library board needing to send in a letter of support?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I think it's probably this body, but
Okay.
I will have my office confirm that, with you, because there was a lot of new information there about who needed to do what. So I think if we got one from both, that would be even stronger.
I just don't want to hold up the library from getting their
Yes.
appropriation if it comes through, and we won't meet again because it's due Thursday. So
Yeah,
we can chat about that a bit.
I think definitely if it came from you, that would be sufficient for what we need.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here
Absolutely.
and honoring our great police officers.
Thank you for having such a great department and for the opportunity to speak. So have a great night, everyone. I'm going to stay for a little bit, and then I have to run because I have to take my daughter to her piano lesson. So, thank you.
I see we have our county commissioner here as well. Would you like to address the board, sir?
Yes, please. Thank you. Good evening, Dwight Washington. It's been a long time, and a lot's happened, but not much has been getting done, and I think in this case, it's really good because there's some big decisions that are taking place in the county that hopefully that people will provide some sound reasoning, sound ideas, and will make the best decision possible. And some of these I've actually discussed with you, so I'll just kind of refresh those really quickly and let you know that I'm here for questions, and or if there's some information I need to seek out from the county, I'd be happy to do that for anybody who asks. But there's been discussion and curiosity about evening meetings, and there still is discussion and about that. And there's setting it up for possibly next year is what I think it's trending towards right now, at least further discussing that. But they are looking and monitoring the YouTube videos and seeing how much of an interest there is from the public in terms of viewing the meetings. And so I want to encourage everybody that the meetings are being YouTubed, so they are available. Another thing that I brought up in the past that I want to return to is that the jails and whether or not, it's clear that the jails do need some work and that there's a problem, but there's just a huge cost that's associated with that that's like creating a lot of dialogue among the community. And so hopefully we'll come to some sort of solutions without preventing people from getting the services they need and hopefully getting people the services they need before they end up at a point where they do go into the jails is really one of the things that there's some focus or there's some discussion among the commissioners about is just how do we keep people out of jails in the first place. And one of the ways that that is hopefully going to occur is through opioid grants that have been pushed out by the state, federal government, and they're now through the county, and those decisions should be made within the next week as to where those goes, and hopefully Bath will apply and did get some of those. In terms of, big decisions being made, I said that there wasn't much being done, but there is also a bunch of planning. As you all know, the Chandler Road project is something that is, the Road Commission is very committed to and bringing that forward and looking forward to the partnership with Bath and being able to get both parties' desires and interests met in that. So I do think that needs some communications that to be talked about. And then another thing that I want to bring to your attention that does affect Bath in unknown ways is that there is a lot of discussion that's taken place about each township or municipality doing their own planning and zoning. And if they do the planning and zoning, then that takes that responsibility away from the county, frees up some money for the county to do other things with, but it also could potentially be problematic in terms of coming to a comprehensive, holistic view of how the county should be planned and designed. But since Bath does their own and other areas don't, it's kind of been a fee that we've been supporting that, that had benefits and costs for us to work with the communities in zoning and planning. And lastly, I will remind people that the agendas of our board meetings, the agendas of all the committees are online, and those minutes are available for people to look at and keep up to date on what's going on in the different departments in the county. Any questions? I was encouraged by one of my county commissioners to possibly say a joke, come up with something more engaging to draw all that out of you. So I told them I'd work on it for next time, so please be prepared. Thank you.
Never heard you tell a joke. Yet.
Thanks, Dwight. All right, I don't see anybody else here. I don't see our friend from the library, so we'll keep trucking. That brings us to the consent agenda. We've got a couple of things under the consent agenda, minutes from the Planning Commission, minutes from Police and Fire Board. Anybody interested in moving something out of the consent agenda? All right, anybody want to move a motion forward then?
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as submitted.
Second?
Who got that? Either Al or Ray.
Yeah, it was Al or Ray, it's okay.
So we have a motion and a second. Because it's a consent agenda, we don't do discussion. We will take a roll call vote, though.
Okay, Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Kotke?
Yes.
Ms. Kellerman?
Yes.
Ms. Hagerman?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes. That motion carries. That brings us to approval of the minutes. We have minutes from the Board of Trustees meeting from, meetings from April 7th.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes from the trustee meeting of April 7th, 2025.
Both meetings, right? The closed meeting as well.
Are those on here?
Yeah, it's on there.
It's
Oh,
pluralized.
Oh, minutes,
Yes.
yes, minutes. Sorry.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes from the meetings on April 7th. Is there any discussion or questions? All right, hearing none, we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries as well. That brings us to the approval of the vouchers.
I'll make the motion to approve the vouchers as submitted.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the vouchers. Is there discussion?
Nope.
All right, seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote.
Ms. Kellerman,
Yes.
Mr. Kotke,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss,
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans,
Yes.
Ms. Hagerman.
Yes.
You switched up the direction on me.
Gotcha.
You got me. That motion carries. That brings us to the treasurer's report, and it is the quarter where we get a treasurer's report.
As you can see, it's in your packet. I would just like to say I have 2 CDs that I've already renewed this year, and the APYs have already gone down 0.5% from when I bought them last year, so.
After you did?
No,
after you bought 'em.
like from last year's to this year's rate.
Is that why some of them haven't changed since?
It's the renewal. You
February?
see the maturity dates on there, so
Mhm.
they won't change until they come due.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But like, the first one that renewed was 326 from MSU Credit Union. We originally had that at 4.5 APY for the year. Now it's at 4%, so rates are going down, unfortunately.
Do we just leave this money in there and let
It
it
just
ride, or
keeps-
do we take the interest out? that
No,
we
I leave the
approved?
interest in there. You just compound it, so you earn more interest on top of the interest until we need the funds.
Okay.
So, yep.
Our cash seems to be high.
Which one? Yes, well, that was because taxes were paid and stuff, so yeah. So I'll start investing the general fund money this month. Yep.
Okay. So we'll see more investments.
And that will go down because we will start doing whatever projects, because we'll start paying for the roads, we'll start paying for whatever, so, yep. And honestly, that is also where, you know, general fund is where our payroll comes
Yeah.
from, you know, all of our vouchers, most of them come out of that general fund. So,
Great. I fear the next one isn't gonna be as pretty, but
yeah, because a couple of them come due in July, May, July, so yeah. We'll see what the rates are in a couple months when they renew.
yeah. Other questions or comments for the treasurer's report?
But I would say that when I took over 2 years ago, in '23, some of these were at like 0.08 or 0.8%. I mean, it was like under 1%, so we had a couple years of good percentages, but it's starting to go down already.
All right, we'll move on to committee appointments, which there is none. Item 12, Township Committee reports, also none. That brings us to item 13, unfinished business, big A. Items for introduction, discussion, small a, fire department update from the superintendent.
Thank you very much. Upon the last meeting, this body voted for me to effectuate the resignation of the fire chief, which has been done. In the interim, I appointed Ben Zeeb, who had been a longtime member of the fire department, as interim fire chief. We have not yet posted that position to take applications or resumes, but I will let the board know when that takes place so that you are aware. I'm guessing that this process will be much like the process for hiring a police chief, and that we'll advertise, determine those first round interviews, and then take it from there. At this time, I have the supervisor and myself is sitting on that board. We're currently looking for an outside party, which may be another local chief, to assist us, as we had the undersheriff help us with the police chief interviews, and that was extremely helpful. And then I've had 2 trustees graciously offer their help in interviewing, so I'll be reaching out to you as well to see if you might be available, one or the other. Thank you very much for your time. It's a critical thing for us to plan for the future. We continue to move forward with the fire department assessment, in that we have hired an outside firm of 2 current fire experts. I believe they're both chiefs, and one is a former chief in the industry through the International Association of Fire Chiefs. And they will help us gather data on department operations, policies, procedures, take a look at our apparatus, and help us plan for the future, anywhere from 5 years to hopefully 15 to 20 years out. and let us know how we can improve operations and therefore improve services to our community. So we continue on with that work. In addition, since Ben has been the interim, Mr. Zeeb has been the interim fire chief, he has been taking a look at apparatus issues that we're currently having. We have a couple of apparatus or rigs that need new tires. Unfortunately, you should replace at approximately 10 years. We have one rig that looks like it's going on 18 years of the same tires. So we'll be looking at items like that for replacement. Looking at streamlining some payroll. There are some air compressors that are not working properly. A brush truck that's having a start issue, some coolant leaks and some recalls for safety work that will make sure our apparatus are getting the work it needs. He and I are currently going through the process of prioritizing that work, and anything that impacts health, safety, and welfare, either of our employees or the community, will be addressed first and foremost. We don't need anybody getting hurt or additional loss of property, of course, due to these issues. So we will continue on with that work and prioritizing, and if we need your assistance, as in budgetary amendments, we will be coming to that and presenting that to you all for your consideration. We're just not there yet, so we'll continue to do that work. The department, because it's close to Tom King Junk Day, it's been a great time for us to pull up a dumpster and start to clean out the building and purge some of the old items that need to be gone through and really get the department in tip-top shape. We are also tracking ambulance runs and responses, if there are missed responses, if there is the wrong vehicle on scene. And that's part of the work that we've been doing with Mercy as well, with this body that the supervisor and I have brought to you and discussed with you. So that work continues as well. And then we are looking at, I wasn't aware of this, but apparently we have a emergency support operations plan that has not been updated since, I think, 2016. We have a person in the department that is an emergency operations coordinator in another county here that will be assisting us with that work. Because we're out of compliance with that, if there were a tornado or another disaster in this area, it's my understanding we would not qualify for some funds. So we're going to get that turned around as soon as possible so that this community doesn't miss out on anything should something occur here. If you have additional questions about the fire department, I'd be happy to answer them. Right now, we're just trying to take an assessment of everything from the building to the people to trucks and equipment. One of the concerns we have, but we're trying to feel our way through it, is the SCBA's, the tanks that the firefighters use when they're on scene. 5 of them are in either need of repair or replacement, so we're working through that. We have 25 currently that are working in good order. So that's a small number, but certainly if something happened, we might be in a position where we would need those in a critical incident. And our gloves, I'm told, are in rough shape, and we'll need a pair of those that might seem like small potatoes, but those can be, I'm told, $3,000 a piece. And if you need a lot of sets of those, you can be in trouble. So we will continue to monitor those things and put together a plan to bring here.
Were these items that you are finding the need to change pretty quickly included in the budget?
Not at this time. I think it's really important. There will be some work, like changing tires will occur without coming to this board and will be absorbed in the money that was budgeted for repair and maintenance. But I can see a place where we would pretty quickly exceed that $5,000 and would need more money. So it's very possible that as we move through fixing some of the things that need our attention, such as tires and the tank, the compressors, we'll very quickly get to a point, because this was supposed to be a strategic planning year. So the projects and the maintenance and everything was to be very little.
Right.
I think we'll exhaust that money pretty quickly, but I would like you to be part of those conversations with me as we determine what needs to be addressed first and foremost, and those other items that we can plan for either in the next budget year or part of the capital improvement process.
Thanks.
You had mentioned compressors. Do we have, probably we do, a high-pressure compressor to fill up those Scott air packs? I assume they're Scott air packs.
I'm not sure if they're Scott. I'm looking at April because she is a firefighter in our ranks right now.
That's
We,
just a brand name, so.
yeah, what I know is that, they're all leaking and it affects how many you can fill at the same time, or it affects whether they fill and shut off. So some of the issues we're having is with the compressors for those tanks.
I know they're pretty finicky and very particular about the filters and everything they have to have.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, please?
Do you have an estimate of when you might start your chief search?
We're
Timeline-wise?
going through the, it's been a long time since we searched outside of, the department. So what we're doing is just making sure that the position description is up to date, so that we can, accurately post that and look for chiefs, in the area. So I would anticipate, in the next couple weeks, we'll be able to post that, and put it up for a little bit of time and have those apps come into us.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Mr. Al?
Yes, I'd like to recommend you pick one or two of our fire department, or our police and fire board
Okay.
to be on that committee, because they felt kind of left out with the police, and I think we gotta use them more.
Okay, I'll take that recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Large B items, large B, items for action under unfinished business 13 is not actually an item for action, but I did want to give you an update. So strategic planning, we have moved ahead with creation of a proposal. We have found a vendor, a firm, a person to act as facilitator. I think we're really lucky. He is the former director of MTA, was at MTA for basically 30 years, so knows townships, knows strategic plans, knows boards, knows our work. And so he has agreed to do the strategic planning with us. He has some questions specifically about our comprehensive plan opportunity that's coming up, so Miles, I'll ask you a couple of those today. And agreed to move the committee work that we also approved doing under the same heading. And so rather than two firms, two contracts, this would be a single firm, a single contract. And from my preliminary math, it looks like we would be under budget for both of those together. So I think we couldn't get anybody better than him. I'm really excited. He's excited to work with us. So the contract is not quite ready for you all to approve, but I think the first meeting in May, we should have that for you, and then we can move forward depending on how these things with the comprehensive plan go. Any questions about that process?
Just to be clear, excuse me, you said two for one. Strategic plan and what else?
The committee work.
Okay.
But I wouldn't use the term two for one.
Well,
It
that's
might be
kind,
two
I
for
believe that's what you said.
1.5.
All right, I just,
It will be less than 2 for 2.
I heard you talk about the comprehensive plan, then I heard you talk about strategic planning, and,
Committee work.
yeah.
Any questions about that?
No.
All right, then we will move on to new business item 14, large A, items for introduction and discussion. That brings us to the bylaws of SCUMA, the Southern Clinton County Municipal Utilities Authority, and we have Director Gursky here to walk us through that exciting process.
Thank you, Supervisor and Trustees. I appreciate the time tonight. It's been a minute, so I'll be coming back again. You'll see me quite a bit in the next 100 months as it comes to the budget cycle as well. As you're all aware, SCUMA did a large project utilizing SRF funds. We're nearing the end of that project, but along with that project, our articles of corporation need to be updated. Inside our articles, one of the main drivers of that was the capacity allowance for each municipality and associated with how many board members each one of them would get. That was the real driver of looking at these articles and getting these updates complete, or at least in draft form. So the SCUMA board, along with its committees, worked with the SCUMA attorneys to provide a draft, which then was sent to all the municipalities and their attorneys to review and provide comments back. Once that completion of all those drafts were completed, in combination with all the attorneys from each municipal district, there was one draft form, which now is in your hands. I'm gonna highlight kind of the more significant changes in there. If you looked at the red line version, there's all kinds of red lines. I'd be happy to answer any questions you got on them if I can. A lot of attorneys worked on this behind the scenes, and I am not an attorney, but I can get you those answers if I do not know them right offhand. But first and foremost, Article number 5, this addresses the possibility of any liquidation and or separation of the agreements with the municipalities. So we wanted a process in place there, because it wasn't well spelled out. Article number 6, it looks at the possibility of changing our fiscal year. Sometimes these things get pushed down from the state level and are out of our control. If that was to happen now, we'd have to go back through this whole process and get everybody's agreement for a simple fiscal year change. So we wanted to really have the flexibility, so the terminology was added there. Article number 7, this addresses kind of the driver of the change. In current form, the articles mentioned any 0 to 600,000 gallons would equal 1 board member. At that calculation, under the new capacity of the plant, we would end up with 15 board members. The board all agreed that that's probably not the best scenario. And they wanted to keep kind of the makeup that they had. Although they did add the language in which you could have an alternate. Because there is one community that has 1 member. That's a lot on the 1 member to be there all the time, so this is one comment, even since I've been there for nearly 10 years, that they've always said that we wish we could add that, so we did add that language so we can make sure we have good representation if somebody's not there. Article number 9, this is probably the more significant adds, and this addresses the possibility in which you have to have an affirmative vote and or minimum voting numbers to basically move any type of utility through another district. For example, if Meridian Township wanted to come to Skooma, Bath would have to have 100% affirmative vote for them to transport their sewage through the township. That way there's no forcing of, someone to take ownership of a utility through and kind of make a municipality move or ultimately alter its plans through zoning. We want to make sure there's a fair process in place there, which didn't exist before. This was driven through conversations of growth, as the whole project was driven by growth. We want to make sure we have the ability for municipalities to feel fairly represented and ultimately have a fair shake at the table to know that it's a serious concern when looking at the transportation of any utility and utilizing their rightful space. Article 12, this looks to address ultimately accessing full capabilities of PA 233, which is ultimately what the authority is formed under. And that it's referenced many times throughout the articles. And then Article 16 clarifies that any bonds that would be approved and or sold for any project would need to be revenue only and not supported by geo-base, so that clarification was added in there as well. These are the most significant highlights throughout the article. And I talked with Ms. Hildebrandt, and we discussed that I'd be back the next meeting as well. So if you have time, you want to look over it. If you obviously have any questions now, I can answer them, or be back for your next meeting to answer questions as well if you come up with something in the meantime.
So these have passed the SCUMA board at this point?
No, so the process, they've been passed to pass out to you.
Okay,
So once all the municipalities sign off on it, then it has to come back to the school board for them to sign off. They're the final ones to
They're
sign off.
final, okay.
Yes, they are final in this instance. At which time they'll be codified and sent to the Great Seal.
If I may. I was on the committee that went through these, and it was a very amicable process. It was a very, could have been a very overwhelming process, but I think we worked together really well, and we all tended to agree on the changes that needed to be made. It then was over, the review of the bylaws was overseen by Chris Patterson of Fahey Schultz, our legal counsel, and he worked with the other municipal lawyers to come to the draft that's before you now. And then Miles and I were, of course, on the board that voted to send them out to each municipality for review and a vote. So I'm pleased with the process, and I think it was a very effective process, and I have no issues with what's before you today.
Do any municipalities lose in not keeping the current 0 to 600,000 gallon per one board member, or is the proportion remain the same?
Yeah, we calculated it the exact same it works out to be now.
Okay.
0 to 800. And that was for that reason, that everybody was satisfied with where they were at. There has not been any conflicts, at least in recent memory or recent history that I've been exposed to. And that was the driver of the board, is we want to keep it the way it is. So.
I would offer, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
Mr.
Go
Cockey.
ahead.
I would offer that in looking at the board makeup, what we didn't want was for it to ever expand what is already a large board for us, to continue to grow and become an unmanageable board for Mr. Gursky. But what did become apparent is that the city of DeWitt has one person, it's their city manager that's of their representation. It became clear to us, I think, with DeWitt Charter Township, because they were between managers, they were missing a critical person at the table. If there were something to be done during that time, they would be able to, had this been in place, be able to put another person in place to take that person's seat until a manager was found and able to sit at those meetings, so.
That would be the alternate provision?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. So I think it did identify for some of us things that could be encountered in our representation, so I think those were good exercises to go through together.
Right.
I should have asked this before, but you mentioned that you just finished the project, the expansion project. Took 2 years. And how long do you foresee that lasting until you need another expansion?
Sure, great question. One, we're not quite complete. We're, at this last board meeting, 84% complete, but it went well. The way we designed it, based on historical growth from all 4 municipalities, we're projected at 20 years. With that being said, that's a very conservative number, and likely gonna last longer than that. Probably push closer to that 27, 28 year time frame. But if any of us can predict economics nowadays, that would be great. And development, that would be sure be helpful, but that was the target. We wanted to hit 20 years for sure.
I had 25 in my head. I don't know why. It must be I'd read a study somewhere, but,
Yep, we wanted to hit 20 years, was our target, but we've overshot that based on what flows we're seeing and what growth we have seen in the last 5 years, so.
are you still gonna be there in 20 years?
Time will tell.
We're trying.
That I can't promise.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So if board members have more to understand about this or thoughts, please get with the superintendent between now and the next meeting, at which point we would put this on for a vote.
Correct.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you, sir.
I appreciate it. And thanks to Karen and Miles for all their help. Appreciate it.
They're very valuable to us. They're worth 600,000 gallons of sewage. Each. Sewer tap-in fee planning commission recommendations from the planner, and it looks like we have our esteemed chair here as well.
All right, hello board. So, if the board remembers, the planning commission was asked to look into the sewer tap-in fees, just to lay some context, in case there are people that are unfamiliar on the board or in the audience. So you have your sewer rate fees, which obviously the board's been talking a lot about. Rate fees are responsible for helping fund the system and the maintenance of the system. The tap-in fee is the fee that's paid by the developer or builder when they're establishing a new user to the system, when they're actually tapping into the system. So there are two separate fees, and they're responsible for funding different parts of the sewer system. Tap-in fees help with future expansion of the system. Historically, the tap-in fee has been $3,000, and the inspection for that to take place has been $50. That rate was set in 2006, and obviously inflation and times have changed, and things are quite expensive. And it's become apparent that the tap-in fee needs to reflect those changes. We looked at a variety of metrics in the planning department and gave those to the planning commission so they could help them come to a recommendation for this body. Looked at a suite of things, and the planning commission, you wanna talk about where you guys landed with the recommendations themselves?
Yeah, well, we looked at several things. One of the things we looked at was the percentage of the cost of a home, and the tap-in fee was in that percentage. And home prices at Bath have gone up to the $500,000 range, and the tap-in fee was still $3,000. We also looked at the cost of putting in a septic system for people that cannot tap into the system, and we found that was in the neighborhood of $15,000 to $30,000, depending on the site. So the tap-in fee of $6,000 that the planning commission is recommending is relatively low compared to the cost of either the home or the septic tank system alternative if you live in an area that can't be served by sewer. However, the planning commission also feels that this study needs to be redone as we bring the new plant capacity on, because we have not covered the cost of upgrading our part of the system to get the sewage to the plant, nor the cost for the REUs that we're having to spend to buy the capacity at the plant. That's not reflected in the $6,000.
So I'll just reiterate there what the recommendation from the planning commission to the board of trustees is. So the recommendation is threefold. So the first recommendation is to take the tap-in fee, which is currently $3,000, and adjust that to a $6,000 tap-in fee. Take the inspection fee, which is currently $50, and adjust that to $150 per inspection. Typically, there's one inspection with the hookup. Sometimes there does need to be a re-inspection. Sometimes builders accidentally bury it before we can get out there, and then we have to go out there twice. So it happens. It doesn't happen often, thankfully. I know April's smiling because we've had to deal with one recently. And then the third recommendation is, because we did use a suite of metrics to try to come to some number here, and you can always argue whether the methodology that we used was appropriate or not, but we know that, I know at least the planning department, we are not experts in this place. I'm not a civil engineer, I'm not somebody that lives and breathes sewer, and Brad did.
Brad's like, thanks.
Well, Brad did provide us a good study that another community done, where they were able to come to their rate. And so there are firms out there that have the ability to get down to the dollar of what a tap-in fee should cost. So the third recommendation was that as a part of the board's 2026 budget, the board could possibly set aside funds to bring on a firm and further study this and get, where the rate should actually be. The impetus on why the planning commission is bringing forward any rate increase at all is because we're so deficient on raising this rate over time, that the metaphor I was kind of using was a triage metaphor, which is we need to stop the bleeding, and then we can at a later point assess the breathing. So right now we're losing money per tap-in essentially, and we need to course correct, I guess, in my opinion and the planning commission's opinion. So I don't know if the board has any questions on that. I don't know exactly, superintendent or.
Yeah, in comparison, what does DeWitt and the other ones on the lines charge.
Well, I think Brad can speak to, just because we happen to have you here, so thanks for sticking around, that they're in the midst of doing the same process we are right now. Everyone is kind of across the board, and municipalities all looking at this right now, because even though inflation's been one thing, but within the sewer industry, inflation's been a whole nother thing. Sewer costs have gone vastly higher than the normal rate of inflation.
Yeah, all the municipalities were all very close in that 3,000 to 3,500. And most all of them, I believe, are looking at it, okay, we need to address this, because they're in the same boat. We haven't addressed this in, a couple decades, and we need to make sure it's equitable and relevant to the current collection system. Although that being said, each one, and this is a discussion I had with Miles, and I found a neat study that I shared with him, and I've shared with other communities, as I've researched this, is that each collection system has its own nuances and its cost to operate. Fast operation of this many RUs is different than DeWitt's and or Watertowns, et cetera. So each one of them need to be somewhat unique in how they approach that in covering those costs to be equitable to the community. So that's kind of the study that I shared with Miles. Before it was everybody kind of had the same, and not everybody has the same cost associated with operating those systems.
Any other questions?
All right, so this will come back to us as well next meeting.
Yes.
No
Thanks for all
action.
your hard work.
No action, right?
No, it's new business.
Thank you for the work of the planning commission. I appreciate all of you
Yeah.
for this work.
We'll just hang up here, because I think we got a couple items coming.
Yep.
All right, let's go to the senior center parking lot planning commission recommendation from you all as well.
I'm just gonna get my laptop open for this one, just because I can't remember verbatim every recommendation.
Several months ago, the board asked us to take a look at the planning, or the parking at the senior center. And we did look at the parking, but we also looked at the senior center utilization, because parking is also a function of how much the center is used in my home. I think I don't know if you had a chance to read the total report. We have a lot of options for you to consider further action by the board.
Yeah, I don't know if we included their total report in your packet. I think just for brevity's sake, we included a memo from the planning commission.
Oh, the whole report wasn't there?
It's not included in their packet tonight, although I think that report has been shared with the board members that have requested to look at it. And I know even when Sherry was Trustee Kellerman was at our meeting. And I know that, the seniors center advisory committee also had the report in hand. So it's definitely out there, it's definitely very public. But just again, for brevity, we included this. So I'm just gonna read through the 5 recommendations that kind of came out of this conversation at the planning commission. I'll say that I think the intent of the planning commission with some of these recommendations was to just provide guidance, but not be so restrictive with the recommendations that they hemorrhage anybody that would want to, take action on any of this issue. So anyways, the planning commission recommends that the board of trustees seek an analysis of the entire campus via campus master plan. The planning commission recommends that this analysis be done prior to the expansion of any facility within the township's campus, including the senior center facility and its associated parking areas. So just to break that one down real quick, one of the big questions that came up during this is, well, what about the expansion? What about the expansion? We know that there's some people within the community that would like to see one. We wanted to give just a definite answer on that, and again, maybe known or not known to those facilities. If you ask any department or body that is township associated, they all want more space. The police department wants more space, the fire department wants more space, my interns want more space. So, what we're saying is, you need to take stock of everything here and then create, similar to what you're doing with the fire department, a list of priorities. Okay, so the second one, the planning commission recommends that the board of trustees analyze senior center meal price, as this may have a correlation with parking issues. So obviously, you know, $5 a meal, if they're good quality meals, they're in high demand. So that's all we're seeing there. The planning commission recommends that the board consider, reserving several parking spaces for individual, pick up to-go meals. So similar to what you see at a lot of restaurants these days, you know, you could have a couple of spaces that are reserved for carry-out only. And again, these are recommendations and ideas we discussed at the planning commission. I don't think anyone from, at least from the planning commission side, expects the board to, you know, take all of these to heart, but it's just kind of what came of our conversation. The planning commission does not recommend a formal parking study to be conducted, concerning the senior center, so that kind of answers, I think, original question that was asked, which, what about a parking study? The planning commission recommends that the board seek further data collection concerning patronage of the senior center to, better inform policy decisions in the future. So that's kind of obviously just a low hanging fruit one. Obviously, we had a large conversation that we tried to be as data driven as we could, but you know, collecting better data on the front end can lead to better outcomes, so, you know, take that for what you will. So, yeah.
I know that your recommendations say that they're for the Board of Trustees, but they, I think all of them seem more like operational items that would sit with the superintendent's office. Is that your read of this too, Karen?
It was my read of most of them. We have, in conjunction with each other, during budget, taken a look at meal costs, and that can certainly continue, but we can also look at the report in more detail operationally and decide what elements could move forward from my department as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, that's fair.
I don't know that it's the best use of our time to start deciding reserved parking spots. I think that could really take us a long time and is probably not where we should spend our time, but not a bad suggestion.
For sure.
Other questions of these recommendations? Yeah?
I've got one I've run by them for years, and they always tell me no. What about moving the gas tanks? Down by the fire department?
I don't think they
Outside
can.
my pay grade and
Well, it would give a lot of spaces for parking. Plus, when you got that full of people up there waiting to get meals, the police and the fire department cannot get in there and get gas.
yeah, and I think that leads back to the first recommendation, which is that campus analysis. Like, we need to do analysis of how this whole campus works together. Because there are problematic things in our parking lot.
Yeah.
We have been, Mr. Rosecrans, been working with the seniors to try to keep people from creating their own spots, because it is critical, and I'll work further with the director of DPW and the interim fire chief, and probably Chief Mardigan, to make sure that we mark that in a way people don't decide to do their own thing, like fire lane, or in some way, like emergency vehicle do not block, because we have had instances of people making their own spaces and then keeping a fire truck from
Yeah.
fueling up. So I have, as of late, had people go into the senior center and ask them to move their vehicles. And I recognize that can be a hardship, but for those people creating their own, they're creating a hardship on emergency response as well, so. So we're trying to pay more attention to that on a daily basis
Yeah.
when the center's open.
I would just offer that if you haven't read the report, it would be in the recent planning commission packet. I found it to be very interesting, the depth of data that was accessed and included was vast. And I think on the planning commission, we're pretty lucky to have somebody, Commissioner Mark Craner. He has extensive large-scale food service experience. That was his career, and so he's been kind of a wealth of knowledge and advising what the best way to determine, like, well, what does it actually cost to serve a meal. I found that really interesting. I mean, they pay $5, and we know what our grocery bill is here, but he mentioned factoring in all the operational costs that it takes to serve a meal. It came out to about 12 something was the actual cost to the township to provide one meal. And then turning around and, you know, the seniors are paying $5 or non-seniors are paying $6, I think. That, the rest of that cost is subsidized by the taxpayers of Bath Township. So I definitely think that that warrants a look at, our pricing and how we're pricing, and that, maybe 40% of those meals are being served to residents from outside Bath Township. And while I'm thankful that we're providing them a place to eat and gather and socialize, I do think that that's putting kind of a burden on our taxpayers that we should at least investigate, going forward. There was one other thing that I wanted to mention about it, but maybe I'll think of it. But overall, we spent a lot of time talking about parking and meals. It was interesting, though, I think. The other thing that I wanted to mention is it seemed like we really needed to know how often people came. That was one data point that would have been very useful. Yeah, we marked somebody from Williamston, but is that person coming all the time, or did they just come the once? So is that, how much weight should that data point carry? That data wasn't included. So I think that maybe that's another recommendation that's sort of included in that last bullet, but specifically, if we had that information, I think it would have allowed a better understanding of the overall cost to the township versus not township residents.
Other questions, thoughts? Al?
The reason we got the money to put into the senior center was because we did have outside people coming here. And we probably wouldn't have got it, I don't think, if we would have had just Bath people. But we do service a lot of area. A lot of them are Bath people. They come back because they want to see the Bath people and talk with them. And a lot of them is just that Bath people are nice people to be around.
Well, I agree. That was the other point that, I don't think that got mentioned in here, but we had talked about, what about reaching out to some of these other communities and say, hey, your seniors are using our senior center, you don't offer something similar. Do you want to kick in to help support these people from your community? I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask.
I think you mentioned that once, Ryan.
Or township, county.
Yeah.
That probably would be a pie in the sky, but.
And I think
You never
that's
know.
also where that frequency data would
Right.
help
Yeah.
as well, making that argument.
We need
Because
a
they'll probably
survey.
ask for it.
We need a survey of, like, for a few days, what's the percent, because it could be near 50, but if somebody only comes once and we've got a dot on our map that they came 50 miles away, but what's the average week?
Right.
From inside, outside, and perhaps, like, one of my thoughts is, why do we have to, we could think of townships or the county to chip in for outside residents, so we're paying our tax money for our people, and they're coming and using our tax money.
And I don't
And
know
that was-
how our database is set up. I heard like index cards were referenced. I
It's
don't know
old,
if this
though.
might be a way to modernize.
It's the
that.
Dewey Decimal
A
System.
little bit.
You voluntarily write your name down when you come in.
If we could
or
get
do
this in a
check card.
digital format, it would be a lot easier to check off names every time that they came date by date by date.
Yeah.
I mean,
You
you
recommend-
could make tally marks on the cards,
Do
but
you recommend
somebody
chipping
has to add that up.
you could chip the people coming in
Here we
too.
go.
That might be too high tech. All right, any other thoughts? This is really great work, and thank you for taking this up for us. It looks like the superintendent's got a handful of things to follow up on.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, that brings us to item D, under new business, Ide Townhomes Special Use Permit.
Yeah, all right. All right, well, let me scroll down real quick to the staff report here. All right, so if no one's, I'll first set the stage of what we're talking about. So this development recently made its way through the planning commission. It ended up getting a vote of 6-1, so the site plan was approved and the special use permit was recommended for conditional approval to this body, so that's what brings us here tonight. The development that we're talking about is a multifamily dwelling development. the project name has been coded to I Townhomes. The developer's here tonight as well, to answer any questions. As from the land use perspective though, we're just considering these single-story apartments. They'll be on a single parent parcel, so they won't be individually parceled out like some of the projects we've brought in the past. This product will be for rent. Approximately, I think by our last site plan, it was about 88 dwelling units. So it's, you know, for Bath Township, it would be one of our medium to larger, multifamily developments that the townships looked at. If you're not familiar with the site area we're talking about, this is within the Somerset complex. So it would just be, you know, right out here on Webster Road, you start heading south, you make a left on the Somerset Lane, and you might be familiar with that large vacant lot that's there, that's owned by the Ides, and that's where they're seeking to establish this. Some pros about this site, I am likely why the Ides held on to it for a while, is it's flat. All the utilities are right there, it can be serviced by municipal water and sewer. Talking about the infrastructure of the project was one of the probably main points of conversation at the planning commission level, and trying to get that right. So there were several iterations of this review, and you can see in my staff report, more comments than you might be used to from engineering. Several phases of iterations where we looked at various engineering problems and challenges to be solved. We finally got to the point of working with the developer and their engineering firm where we thought it warranted completion of the review and a vote from the planning commission, which, as I led off with, has at this point happened. From the planning perspective, I try to stay as neutral as I can with these. I'll talk about just the facts, I guess. You know, this is an interesting housing product. This is one of our current comprehensive plan, talks about one of the goals of the comprehensive plan is to create a diversity of housing types within the municipality. So that means housing, that means townhomes, condos, single family homes, multifamily apartments. So we don't have something like this. I think the developer stated, and I would second, that this housing product typically is good for, you know, your young professionals, but also it really plays well to that 55 plus population that's maybe looking to downsize from a larger home and get into something that's easier to maintain. And the single story aspect, no stairs, really helps with that. If you're looking for a project similar to this, I forget the name of it, but if you go on State Road in DeWitt Township, if you're on Chandler, you make a right on the state, it's like the first development on your left there.
The Falcon, I think.
Yeah, whatever, yeah,
Yeah.
when we talked about this at the planning commission, I showed it on FetchJS, it's basically the same thing that we're looking at here. And that's been successful there, and it looks nice, and so if you wanna take a look at what, you know, a real life version of what we're talking about tonight, you know, I encourage you to go visit that.
Do you have a sense of what the rent would be?
That would be a good question.
About the $1,800 to $2,000 a month range.
Okay.
And all these units have attached garages, so that's a nice feature. The development will be walkable, there'll be sidewalk infrastructure, there's lighting elements to the development. If you remember, this one actually came, we talked about this preliminary at the board as well because of the access issue with the drive, and one of the conditions that we've worked through with the developer is to establish an easement for emergency access in case that Somerset entrance ever goes down for whatever reason in the future. We'd be able to have that easement where we could stub in kind of a gravel emergency drive so people can still get to and from this complex. Obviously, construction's always painful, but as we're about to find out with Webster Road this coming month, there is a way around things, and we will find a way to get people from A to B. It just might not be their preferred way for a short period of time. So, yeah, that's kind of the scope of the development. Our recommended conditions are at the end of my staff report that we put together. There are many. A lot of them, I would say, are pretty generic though for a project of this and in my opinion, achievable by our staff working with the developer through the construction review process.
What was the one dissent vote for?
Yeah, there was a dialogue at the planning commission about the PUD language itself, and in my read of the PUD language, I think there is some contrary, you could argue contrary language within the PUD section, but as our legal counsel probably knows, PUD sections are not just in Bath Township, and a PUD is a plan unit development. PUD language throughout the state of Michigan often is complicated and can have conflicts within it, and that's usually intentional in nature because the PUD is language is seen as a flexible tool for municipalities to use. So the design of developments doesn't get pigeonholed into forcing developers to do things that don't make any sense. It allows flexibility. There was dialogue at the planning commission over how flexible we were being, and the dissenting vote thought we were bridging the gap of being too flexible and going beyond what, in their opinion, they saw as, I wouldn't say just, but they saw as.
Or as the vision of the township going forward.
What was the goal of the PUD language? But obviously the 6 other commissioners disagreed, so.
I think there was also some discussion about amenities. I think that particular commissioner felt that,
That's right.
that, this plan, as it was laid out, did not offer a lot of amenities compared to the Somerset apartments next door that have a pool and, things like that. And this does not offer that, and these residents would not be given access to the amenities at Somerset.
Yeah, and kind of the developer, I mean, they can speak for themselves right here, but like, their counter to that is the Somerset apartment complex has a much different demographic that they're trying to rent to versus the demographic that is gonna live in these. Plus, in Somerset, you know, you don't have your own yard because you're in a multi-level apartment, you have a balcony, but that's, so amenities are needed, so you have recreational area, where because this project is on a single story, you have a sliding glass door at the back that opens up to a yard, you know, that residents can provide themselves with recreational opportunities. Now, whether that's true or false, it's not my purview.
No?
Yeah, I do have a question. Where is this emergency road supposed to come out at?
Yeah, so if you look at aerial view, or you just kind of imagine in your mind, Somerset, the entrance to Somerset, it would be on the north parcel of that where the I also
Like north of that
Does it
development
come out to
that's already on there?
On Drum Miller.
It comes off of Webster Road,
Oh, it does.
Where the sidewalk access is going?
Kinda where the hill is.
kind of, there's a little bit of a hill there for sure, but it's flat enough where we thought we could stub a drive in.
And they were amenable to making an easement
Yes.
for,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So,
we just got a long spiel, wasn't too many months ago, about having 2 exits.
yes.
And now all of a sudden, here we have 1 exit.
Yeah, so what's interesting about how this all played out was that, just a little context on that, the road commission has a standard that they will only allow so many dwelling units within 1 point of entry, and they have that standard for a few different reasons. However, if you look at the Somerset complex itself, that standard already isn't being met. You know, there's hundreds of dwelling units and 1 point of entry, and the road format within that was decided upon and adopted by the very road commission that's setting these standards. So they were kind of put in a position where they kind of had to deviate from their standards, and their board did allow a deviation from standard, which to the developer's dismay might have dragged this process out, but once we got that, we took a hold off the process and began to evaluate it.
And if you remember, Al, when we did Somerset, we talked about an entrance and exit on the Drum River.
Yep,
And the road commission said, no way, no how.
yep.
So that's the reason there's only 1 entrance and exit, the existing Somerset development.
Yeah, I think at the time, the road commission didn't wanna send that much volume of traffic onto a dirt road.
Right.
But then, you know, the current staff at the road commission now maybe wishes that they did do that that time.
Yeah.
You know, that's how things go.
Yes, they, unfortunately.
Any other questions about this plan? All right, so we'll see this again in a couple of weeks as well.
Yep.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen. I think that ends our planning section, at least for discussion. And brings us to item E, which is a resolution on a MERS 557 plan by the superintendent.
Thank you. What you have in your packet are 3 documents to effectuate a request that you approved in the Police Chief Mardigan's contract to have the township deposit $100 each month into what he had originally requested was a post-retirement healthcare vehicle, which MERS indicated needed to be a 457 instead. The first document you have in the packet is the resolution that is adopted by the board to effectuate the program offering. The second document is the agreement, which agrees to offer the plan to all township employees. And then the third document you have there is an addendum, which is the request by the police chief, which you approved to have the township go ahead and deposit that $100 per month contribution into his plan. So a simple thing, but three documents to make that into effect. If you have any questions, we can certainly answer those today or get answers for you for the next meeting.
But you're looking for us to move this tonight?
I am not. This will come back to you at the next meeting on May 5th.
Okay.
For your,
Oh, great.
your vote.
Wow, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. Will we have margaritas?
If you bring them.
Okay.
All right. When you say we offer this to all staff, we would not be providing funding into it for all
Correct.
staff?
The addendum agreement is to make that contribution to just the police chief as part of his contract. The offering to the employees is simply the 457 plan in which they can make contributions on a biweekly basis and from their paycheck.
Do you think anyone will be interested in that?
I actually do. I think our employees have been asking for other, I'll call it vehicles to invest their money into, and I think with the changes that we're looking at in the other MERS programs, I do think that people will take advantage of not only this, but I also think if employees may be able to use that post-retirement vehicle, they would like to utilize that as well. So I do think it'll give them more options to invest their money.
Great. Any other questions?
Please.
Are we still behind on the amount of money we owe MERS? Or are we even?
What do you mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
You're asking about the MERS that we have currently?
yes,
The liability.
The pension plan.
yes, the pension plan. Are we,
Well, there is,
there was talk that we were behind on money because the state changed their rules.
you might be able to answer that better than I can, because there's always liability.
So the township, like many other townships, had for a long time been offering a good, strong benefit, but not quite paying as much into it as might have been necessary until just about 10 years ago, MERS made some changes to how you were supposed to pay that down. So instead of essentially refinancing your house every year, which is kind of how MERS allowed employers to treat those policies, you now have a fixed mortgage of liability, so that'll be paid off, and it's conceptually in the next 6 to 8 years on the big picture. You do still, though, currently have a substantial amount of liability. And when I say paid off, I don't mean as in there will never be another dollar. I mean we will at least be paying even with what we're incurring at the same time. So that continues to be the work of the Finance Committee. You will still be hearing something about that, and that is what the superintendent was referencing as one of the vehicles coming forward likely in the near future will be to make some adjustments to what, if anything, is being offered from a pension perspective compared to something more like a 401K. And this 457, I hate that they both start with fours.
I know.
This 457 is essentially an additional vehicle for people to make choices to contribute to if they wish to.
Were we still gonna offer some training for those of us who wanted it to learn about these changes?
That, I do recall that discussion at the board table, yes.
Okay. Any idea when? When you
Uh,
might start that process?
I think at the board training, two of you indicated, possibly two of you, I'm sorry if I missed anybody else, two of you indicated you were interested in that, and
Okay.
I had yet to pass that along to
Okay.
legal.
All right. Just as long as it's before we're supposed to vote on it.
Additional questions?
All right. As with any of those items under introduction discussion, if you have other questions or thoughts, please share them with the superintendent, and we'll see them for action come at our next meeting. That brings us to item 14, new business B, items for action, 2027-2032 comprehensive plan consulting firm contract, and we'll bring the planner back up for that.
Thank you. All right, so there's a memo included in your packet. I won't read it verbatim, but essentially, as this body might remember, the township has received a $50,000 grant to help the township execute the establishment of a new comprehensive plan. For those in the audience, well, it sounds like everybody here would know what it is, but in case somebody's watching, they don't know what it is. A comprehensive plan is the document that gives planning departments around the state of Michigan the legal foundation to conduct zoning and planning. By statute, these plans are supposed to be updated or established on a 5-year basis, typically a 20-year plan. Given how things played out with our last process, we wanted to get started early this time. So we are starting now, but even on the track that we're at now, I think we're about 19 months out from our target adoption date, which would be January of 2027. That sounds like a lot of time, but it's not. It takes a while to do these. And you know, you're supposed to get a good amount of community input, and you kind of get into these plans what you put into them. All that is to say, it's a lot of work, and staff, you know, has a lot going on. We were looking at bringing on a consulting firm to help us execute this. Now, with the fund being available, it kind of makes sense to do so. What we did here at the township to decide which firm is we sent out an RFP to many of the local firms, or you know, firms that dabble within this space, this planning, engineering space, and we ended up getting a number of applicants back. The township formed an ad hoc review committee. That committee conducted interviews and reviewed the various RFPs that were sent in. The company Gipple Webster stood out amongst that process. The ad hoc review committee made a recommendation to the planning commission that they recommend, I guess, to the board. We go with Gipple Webster as our consulting firm through this process. The planning commission unanimously decided that, you know, that was a good recommendation and has now recommended it to the board, which brings us here tonight. Just to tell you a little bit about Gipple Webster, they have, I want to say around 200 employees with the firm. They cover interdisciplinary fields related to planning, engineering, and design, and architecture, landscape architecture. They are located out of Detroit. One thing that's nice about this firm is they have done a lot of work in the Clayton County area, some recently with the county itself, so they have kind of fundamental local knowledge. I know when we were doing our interviews with them, I was impressed about just down to the detail about how much they actually knew about our township. This wasn't information that you could just pull up Google Maps and know about that, like somebody did a deep dive on the municipality. So that was impressive. I think, again, this is my opinion, but I think they have a really good team. I think planning's a small field, and all the firms that, you know, we sent things out to, I just happen to know planners at the firms. I think everyone that works at this firm that I know of at least is extremely talented and qualified. Another thing that stood out for this firm is they do a lot of work at the educational level with the planning, the Michigan Planning Association. So that kind of sets them apart from other firms just because they're literally teaching the class about how to do comprehensive plans. So, yeah. Any questions about this firm or the process? What we're attempting to do here, it sounds like you had some questions about the comp plan process as a whole, but.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about what the scope of what it will cover?
Yeah, so a comprehensive plan, so there's some terminology here that is intermixed in the planning industry. You have master plans, which was used for a long time, and then you have comprehensive plans. Both plans look at land use policy and land use decision-making to inform a discussion about the trajectory of the future of a community. A comprehensive plan varies in nature from a master plan in probably the simplest way that its name says, which is by its nature, it's comprehensive. So it's looking at more of the facets that go into land use planning and contribute to it, more so than maybe a bare bones master plan would. It also typically would have a more built out community engagement process. Kind of the best practice of community engagement is something called a charrettes. For time and money reasons, Bath Township will probably not engage in a full charrettes, but that community outreach process that we will be using for this plan will be very charrettes-esque, I guess. I know I'm getting into the weeds of like planning stuff, but what I'm basically trying to say is we are going to talk to as many parties that want to talk to us about what the future of Bath looks like from a land use perspective, and we will try to meet people where they're at through a number of community engagement events. And I'm personally very excited about it because we talk at the planning commission almost ad nauseum about like what is Bath, like what is Bath going to be, and it will be nice to kind of get outside our own echo chamber of just talking amongst each other and get out into the public and get some input from them about what Bath is and what Bath should be.
So there'll be public meetings then, or public?
A number of them.
Okay.
A number of them. We'll probably do an open house to kick things off. We'll do a couple community outreach sessions, and then typically once the plan is in its final, not final, but once it's in a draft format where it's actually built out, we'll have some graphs and some maps. Then we'll do another community input session to get feedback on the plan before we start getting that final draft hammered out.
Do you think it'll take all 19 months?
I hope not, but I can totally see it taking 19 months.
Okay. And the total cost without any of the add-ons is just under the 50,000 that we have from the grant?
Just under 50,000 right now. We are speaking with the staff at Giffords Webster, kind of in their, once I knew that they might be brought to this body for a recommendation, I had a Zoom call with them and talked about some of those add-on elements and seeking pricing from them. So,
okay.
Following whatever decision happens tonight will determine if I have a follow-up call with them.
Other questions, thoughts? Go ahead, Al.
How much more could it be than the 50,000?
I don't think it would be too much more. I mean, it depends on what we do and what the pricing looks like, but I would put it in the, less than 10,000 number for sure.
Theoretically, if you took a lot of their add-ons, it could be
More than that.
probably double.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like you're interested in
No.
all of those
Like
add-ons.
one of the add-ons that, just for example, that was pretty expensive in their suite of add-ons would be a market study. We have no need for one.
It was like
It's not part of this
$28,000.
project. Yeah. So, the add-ons that we're looking at are just adding on a couple more public engagement sessions, which they haven't given us a firm number yet, but they've indicated that it'd be in the, around $1,000 per event.
Is that factoring in margaritas for Ray?
It does not factor in margaritas. It
Hopefully,
might
hopefully.
be a BYOB situation. I'm not sure what the township's policy is on alcohol.
No alcohol on site, sorry.
As
Versions margaritas.
we all love margaritas.
Yes, we do.
Bring it on.
There's a great Mexican restaurant out by Costco that has cheap ones.
You've heard, right?
I've heard allegedly it's there.
All right, well, you're looking for action tonight on
We
this.
are trying to get moving into this.
Other questions, thoughts, or perhaps a motion?
I'd like to make a motion.
What's your motion?
Oh, you're on the planning commission, you can't do that.
I
Hi.
most certainly can.
Go ahead.
Were you not at the training? I would like to make a motion to take the planning commission's recommendation of Geffels Webster, I've lost my spot on here, to contract for the comprehensive planning consulting.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion or questions on the motion or on the contract itself? All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes,
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Hagerman?
Yes?
Mr. Kotke?
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Ms. Kellerman?
Yes.
You're
Just
just
jumping all over.
I'm trying to be lively.
You keep me on my toes, that's for sure. So that passes, and we'll move forward with that. That brings us to item 15, which is the superintendent's report.
Thank you. As you can tell, staff in all departments have been, thanks Miles, hard at work. Miles is also one of the people that, when needed, goes out into the community because of the sidewalk project that's occurring right now. Last week, as the sidewalks got started, there was some confusion out near Slate Road about people being able to park in their driveways, and so we received some calls. Miles, Ben, the current director of DPW, Cody Baird, and our newest code compliance officer, Roger Dunham, were going out on site and meeting with residents to help them figure out some of those issues that can become hot button issues when you can't access your home or your driveway and don't know where you're gonna park your car. So they've been very flexible and been doing a really good job of working with our community to make sure that we are coordinating the aspects and helping them accomplish what it is they want to in their daily lives. And so it's been really successful. I see a lot of excitement. I see a lot of people saying that it's going well at this time, which we also believe it's going well. We have had to be flexible and kind of go with the Clinton County Road Commission and the engineers when things have to pivot and change. Our staff is doing a great job of those things and really seeing this project to fruition. I think many of you probably saw the work that was taking place at the Four Corners today. That's exciting as well. I drove through during a very high traffic time, and they were directing traffic and pouring cement and doing all the things. So I think this is going to be a successful project when all said and done, as far as the sidewalks, obviously through safe routes to school, through the school, and that project before we begin work on the rest of Webster Road. So it's exciting to see these changes in our township, and our staff is doing a great job of managing those as they come up. The deputy superintendent is with us tonight, fortunately. She has been working on going through the editing of the website, the new content and the new pages of the website. She is about halfway through that process of editing and has had to create some new pages for content because some pages didn't exist at the time they started that migration, so she's working through that. We also launched during the last couple of weeks the online registration and payment system for recreation, which has been well received. Probably should have happened a lot sooner. We are receiving lots of compliments about how user-friendly it is, which we're happy to hear, and so far there have been no complaints. Staff has been helping people when they have glitches. Most recently was a grade and an experience factor where you had to meet both of those things. So if people met one but not the other, the system wouldn't let them go through. So staff was taking calls on why people were getting frozen out of the system or couldn't continue as they thought they should be able to do. And most people are extremely understanding and appreciative of the new system, so we're very excited about that. Last but not least, Tom King Junk Day is on Saturday. We will continue to take registrations for drop-offs until the end of the day at Friday at 5 p.m. People can still sign up online or call the office. People usually like to take advantage of that sign up online feature. Pickups for those with disabilities and seniors were at 166 when we started today. So this is a banner year. We unfortunately had to turn approximately 5 people away at this time. That may continue to happen. People may continue to call because some people, I think, don't realize the process follows the precinct map system. So we're sending our crews out to a very particular area at one time, and all those are done well in advance of the week that we're picking up, which is this week. So currently 330 drop-offs. We tend to be a little bit more liberal with those and take additionals because we have people that don't bring 2 loads, or we have people that don't show up at all on that day. So we have some flexibility and some downtimes where we can additionally take those drop-offs. So looking to be a very successful event, a lot of staff excitement. It's a day of good food and lots of laughs and hard work. So people, slinging tires and taking care of scrap metal come together and have a good time. And it's nice to see all the residents that drop off everything and see us. We have our regulars that sometimes bring us Little Debbie snacks, and we appreciate them. And most everybody is really friendly that day and appreciative of the efforts of the township. So we look forward to seeing them on Saturday.
Great. Anything else you want to share with us?
No, but I'm open for questions if there are any questions, please.
I think about a month ago, you mentioned that you were having a planning meeting about the Webster Road project, and you were discussing the Memorial Day Parade and whether or not that was gonna happen, and I was just wondering if there was any update on that.
Yes, so we do believe, and the deputy superintendent, if you have more details than I do, you can certainly address this, or I'll go with what I know. Okay.
Clear the room. Yes, so during that planning meeting, it was discussed that the work that will be done on Webster Road at that time will be the sidewalks. Since it is a holiday weekend, a lot of that equipment should be off to the side and not in the roadway. So there shouldn't be an issue with there being the parade. I also did obviously inform the road commission of that, so they are going to put that on the radar and make sure that equipment is kind of out of the way.
Thank you. Good news. Other questions?
Question. Karen, I was talking to Ryan about the easement for
Yes.
Oak Island, and apparently you haven't heard anything.
I haven't. I've emailed twice to the contact that you gave me, which I think her name is,
Allison something.
I can
think.
send you the email that I sent, but
Either that or
I have not received a,
I always say Allison and her name's something else.
I think it's
Yeah, I don't
Vanessa.
think it's Allison.
Yeah.
I think it's Vanessa.
It was Allison before that.
I think it's Vanessa. I did reach out to her early last week, and then when you asked me for the update, I did email them that day and asked just, have you received my email and are there initial thoughts? And I've received no contact back.
So you haven't sent a letter to that executive vice president then? That?
No, I sent a request to Vanessa.
Oh, okay. I provided an address that she had given me for you to address the letter to.
I'm so sorry I sent it to Vanessa and not
Okay.
whoever you had
That may
provided.
be why we haven't heard anything.
Okay.
That was kind of a miscommunication. I'll just
Okay.
talk to you from now on instead of him.
I love that idea.
I'll send it to you tomorrow again.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
It was
great.
her boss's boss or something.
Okay, we did not do that. I
Okay.
communicated directly with her, so
Yeah, he wanted
that
a-
might explain things.
He wanted a written request for easement.
I can do that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
if you share that information with me, I can do that tomorrow.
Excellent.
Yep,
Thank
okay,
you.
thank you.
Any other questions for the superintendent? All right, we'll move on to item 16, which is public statement 2. This is limited to 3 minutes on any topic. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to do a public statement? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to board member comments. Sherry, you want to start us today?
Not really.
Will you anyway?
Good meeting. Thank you for coming, everybody.
I have a question. Would you say verbally to the audience, the virtual audience, what an REU is? It was mentioned about 16 times by Miles and yourself, and a lot of people don't know what those acronyms mean.
Would you say it into the microphone too? Sorry.
Can I help?
Sorry, Brad.
Residential equivalent unit.
And what is that? Is that a house?
So what it compares to is ultimately equals 210 gallons.
Oh, okay.
So each REU is equal to 210 gallons of usage. Since the township and many of our municipalities don't have meters, they're on well systems, they use the REU system. It's widely used and widely accepted in the 10 state standards.
Good, thank you. I had that question given to me, so I said, well, okay, well, I'll have them say it.
That's 210 gallons per what?
Per REU.
But
So
per day, oh, wow.
So don't flush that
Not
toilet
per
so much.
Is it run on water going in? Is how you assume sewage is going out? It's okay.
Correct, yeah, one-on-one.
One and one.
We're hoping if it comes in, it goes
Whatever,
out.
well, except when you water your lawn.
Right.
And
That's-
that's it, it doesn't take account for that.
It's an
So
issue.
It does impact the sewer
Right.
if you don't have that water meter system. So that, it's, in that respect, when it's built, it is a little more conservative. Now, the research has shown it's probably more relevant to about 160 to 170 gallons
Oh,
per day used.
so it went
But
down.
they stay with that 210 to allow for some of that, those anomalies for.
Water your
outside
lawn,
usage.
because it doesn't,
For your margarita party, right?
yeah, if you drink it, you still pee it out.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah, don't remind me of that, didn't you?
We love when you come to visit us, Brad. Ray, anything else you want to add to that?
No, other than, I'm having surgery tomorrow, so I want you to all to cheer for me.
Best of luck.
Good luck.
Best.
Yeah, I'm having my voice fixed. No, not really.
I'm like, what?
It's a little lower than that.
All right, next up.
I just want to say congratulations to Officer Bailey and Officer Wright for their recognition tonight.
Yes.
Thank you. I want to thank you all and our law firm for participating in training last week. I know it was a nice chunk of your mid-week day, but I thought it was really helpful. I thought your questions were really great. Hopefully that'll help us be better and more responsive to each other, to the staff, and to the public. If you think there are other topics for future training, I don't see this as a one-off. I think we probably should be doing ongoing training. I would love to hear that, or feel free to share that with the superintendent, and we'll work on a future training date should that be necessary.
I really enjoyed that. I think it was very, very informative.
Yeah, it was great. And thanks for everyone for coming. The other issue is this letter of support that the library needs from us. I wish we had more time to talk about this, but with the Republicans taking control of the House in the state, they have all of these new rules. Our representative told us a bit about them. One of them is if you're a municipality seeking funding, you need to certify that you're not doing any sort of immigration stuff, like being a sanctuary city, things like that. We have not done anything of that here, and that I don't say reflects any of our individual thoughts on that. We just have not, as a body, done that. So my plan is to, if you all concur here, is to just write a letter of support. We support the efforts of the library. They're trying to get their back safety door paid for. We have not said we're a sanctuary city, and just speak only in facts and directness. Is there anybody who has an objection to that? It's due on Thursday, otherwise I would bring it back to you for approval next meeting, but it's too late, and I don't want to hold up the,
Should we make a motion?
I don't think we can at this point. It's not on the agenda, and,
Exactly.
But she also said that the letter just needs to be really written from you, so.
yeah, I just don't want, I would hate for someone to see the letter on the board and be like, that doesn't represent us, but I promise it will represent you, and I promise you will get a copy of it as well. Again, my plan is to be very straightforward and answer only the questions that the folks have asked us
So what
to.
I hear you saying is that you personally will write the letter.
Yes.
Good, okay. Just trying to clear that up, because there was a lot of jibber jabber in there.
Well, you know I'm good at that. All right, if you have any thoughts on that, let me know in like the next 36 hours. Thank you. Next up, Al.
I have nothing.
Okay.
I just want to say I'm greatly looking forward to Junk Day. I appreciate that our township puts this on for us. I will be bringing up the average in junk.
You got a couple loads coming,
From
okay?
the Hagerman property.
When do we have to sign up?
Also, I wanted to also say that I found the training very helpful and informative, and I appreciated Chris stopping talking long enough for us to get some questions on our own.
It's also
That
nice
one
to
was-
see
that one
David
was for me.
survive. He didn't get fired when he went home.
Poor Dave.
We weren't sure we were ever gonna see you again. Well, good, I'm glad you liked it.
And then lastly, in terms of the sidewalks, I think it's very exciting to see the sidewalks going in around town and seeing comments on Facebook of people saying, I can't wait to walk on them, I can't wait to get my kids out there, to walk my kids to school, which was the whole point of this thing in the first place. And I wanted to give a shout out to the many community members on the Safe Routes to School Committee who put in many, many hours of their personal time grant writing with those meetings, as well as our planning department here at the Township and the Clinton County Road Commission and MDOT and the advisors that they had from Michigan State who helped participate in the process to make it come to fruition for our community from grant funding. I know some of it's coming out of our budget, but a lot of it's not, and I think that that's pretty awesome for our community.
This was a long-term dream of our former supervisor, Paula Clark, so I'm sure she is looking down on this very, very pleased. And we've got a little guy who's watching the sidewalks go in, right?
Yes, he's been very, very excited to see the trucks.
Footprints. On the sidewalks when I grew up in Lansing, so.
He's been in the window because
They're
our
my
house
friends.
faces the park, and he just stood there all day on Friday. He just watched.
Watch the construction? Huh.
He's only a year old, but
I was
he
just
was
gonna
very
say, how old is
excited.
he?
Yeah,
You could basically pay us to be your babysitter.
I wouldn't go that far.
Heavy
You didn't
equipment
change any
operator.
diapers, I did.
All right, any other board member comments? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned.